What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. So today we have another Territory Wars for Dummies video. We're going to be going over defense, and I think there's a lot of cool tricks about defense a lot of people don't quite utilize all the time, and I'm going to kind of explain to you guys how to have the most efficient defense for your guild. Not the most powerful defense, but to be efficient. Efficiency is probably the most important thing on defense that you can do. And at the end of the day, guys, like, Territory Wars is a battle of information, and I'll explain what I mean by that. But let's go ahead and get started with the video. All right, so here's our Territory Wars board. I numbered it the way my guild numbers it, and the way they number it actually just makes the most sense. I'm not no discredit towards any other guilds out there. I know people have their own system where they go like 1A, 1B. I like to just go 1 through 10. 1 through 10, you know, pretty much from start to finish. It just makes more sense to me. But for reference, I'm going to show you guys pretty much when I'm talking about zones. This is just going to be a nice little visual. So one of the most important things about defense in Territory Wars is giving your opponent as least amount of information as possible. And what I mean by that is, in an ideal scenario, and I know a lot of guilds are not at this level yet, but you want to have 50 of the same team per zone. Ideally also the same version, same comp of that team. So up in zone 1 up here, you ideally, if you want to set Ray, you want to have 50 Rays, and in zone 2, let's just say you're setting Jabba, so about 50 Jabbas. Why is it so important to set 50 and 50? The reason for that is because it forces the opposing guild to use whatever counter they have for Ray and whatever counter they have for Jabba. If you do a split zone, like let's say you have half Rays in zone 1, half Jabbas in zone 1, and then in zone 2 you have half JMKs and half Lord Vaders, what that allows the opposing guild to do is to clear your zones faster, because what's going to happen is now they're open to 4 counters instead of just 2. And yes, I understand that there's multiple ways, there's more than one way to skin a cat, essentially. You can kill Lord Vader and Rey with multiple teams, but in a guild that's more organized, they're only going to allow the one counter because they don't know what's in the next zone. So for example, like, they don't want to use they don't want to do a free-for-all and say, okay, like, I need this person to kill 3 Rays, I need you to kill 4 Rays. Like, no, it's 1 Ray per person. Maybe some of the officers, the TW elite in the guild, can kill an extra one, because there are always going to be fails, of course. There's always going to be cleanups, but cleanups are not the same as a counter. Cleanups are pretty much your B or C teams that can kind of get the rest, finish the job, get the rest of it done. But it's very important to have as least amount of diversity as possible in your defense, just because, like I said, it limits the amount of counters they can use. And every guild has participation issues across the board. Whether you're a brand new guild or you're the best guild in the game, there's always participation issues for a lot of different factors. The biggest factor is usually the time zone. You know, if you're in a guild with a lot of players that are in Europe, TW is starting when they're going to sleep most of the time. So it's not ideal for them, and they're probably not going to be attacking right away. So it's up to people in the US to kind of get things started, at least efficiently and cleanly, for them to, you know, kind of hop on once a couple zones are down. So going back to the whole participation issue, if you set, like I said, if you just set multiple teams in one zone, it's going to allow all the people that attack early to do a lot of extra work. They're going to be able to get a lot more teams down. If you set just 50 of this team, 50 of that team, it's going to really slow down their progress, because now they have to rely on the rest of the guild to kill the Rays. So, and I understand a lot of people aren't there yet where they don't have 50 of like every GL, and that's fine. Try to just limit the amount of different teams you have in each zone, because it will increase the effectiveness of your defense quite a bit. All right, the next thing about defense we want to discuss, now that we've gotten, you know, kind of how many teams you want to set per zone, is is every zone different, and why do the front zones and the back zones differ from each other? So the front zones are typically, like, you have to understand that the front zones, everything's open. It's brand new. They have all their counters. So ideally, you don't want to be placing stuff in the front zone that you might be able to trip them up on in the back. You kind of want to, like, cater your defense in a way where you're using different counters. You're forcing your opponent to use different counters, but you know they're going to need that counter for the back zone. Now, there is a lot of teams in this game. There is just way too many teams in this game. I feel like our rosters have outgrown GAC. Our rosters are and have outgrown Territory Wars, I mean, essentially. But you want to limit the amount of options your opponent has in terms of your back teams. Now, obviously, everyone's always going to have a trash zone. That's just everywhere. There's always a trash zone. So usually your trash zone, guys, you don't want to put your trash zone up front. You never want to have a trash team in the front, because what that's going to allow is it's going to build momentum for your opponent. You don't want them clearing a zone right away. If you have a trash zone, make them work for it. Set it in like 9, 6, maybe 7. But I typically, the first 4 zones are super crucial, guys. Super crucial, because once you get through the first 4 zones, that opens ships, and we haven't used ships yet at that point. So, you know, it's kind of like our rosters have been refreshed, and they get to jumpstart the momentum again in terms of clearing. So ideally, if you're trying to trap them with something, you want to set teams in front of them that's going to force them to use something. So, for example, let's say we're going to put Lord Vader in the back. Lord Vader is going to be super sneaky, right? Like we're going to put Lord Vader in 10, and how are we going to limit the amount of Lord Vader counters that we have? So in 2, 4, and 7, we want to put teams that may draw from Lord Vader counters. So like, let's say we'll put JMK in 2, and that's going to force the mirror. So JMK's out. And then maybe we'll put I don't know, we'll put something in 4 that requires JML. We'll put Ray, so that requires JML. So now we know JML is out. You know what I mean? Like it's going to limit their counters, and then they'll still probably clear. They'll probably clear the Lord Vader, right? But they're going to be limited in what their options are. They're not going to have those options that are going to give them an easy 20. They're going to have an option that may be a failed, maybe a 2-tap, a 3-tap. They might bleed, but bleeding is what you want in your defense. If your defense teams get holds, in my opinion, that's a bonus. That is a bonus. You should never play defense relying on your team getting multiple holds. Obviously, Leia is different right now. I'm not going to really talk about Leia because she's just out there, and not a lot of people really have her yet. But you want to cause bleed. You want to set teams that are not going to be easily 20'd, and that's how you win the war. Because let's say they do tap let's say they do 1 tap the entire board. They full clear you, right? But if they bleed, like let's say they get 19s on everything. 19s on everything means they're dropping 50 banners per zone. Okay, 50 banners per zone. You add that up, that's a 500 banner net loss at the end of the day. That's a lot of banners. That is a lot of banners. Obviously, you know, give or take with a couple fails, but that's kind of what you want. So I mean, even if your whole board gets one shot, as long as you're causing bleed and you're efficient on offense, that's how your defense mentality needs to be going forward. Now, the next tip I have for you guys about defense is learning how to read bleed. Reading bleed. What does that even mean? So your defense can reveal a lot of information about your opponent at the same time as, you know, telling you how well your team is doing. So, for example, let's just say for the sake of discussion, Star Killer is set somewhere in like zone 1 or 2, right? And your opponent's attacking, and they're getting a bunch of 19s. You know what I mean? Like just 19, 19, 19, maybe a couple 20s here and there, but just 19s across the board. That's actually information that you can use to apply to your offense game. So when you see a lot of 19s like that, to me, when I read that, that means they're using probably Sith Eternal with 1 extra character, whether it's Wat Tambor, Armorer, maybe a pre-taunting tank, because most of the time you're going to lose the extra character for C, and then he can just solo the rest of the team. So if I see a lot of 19s, that just reads like C. It means they're probably using C on offense, because C very rarely goes on defense. I mean, very rarely. He was set on defense a lot during the bulk meta, but it's very Datacron dependent. So that, and another example would be like, let's say they set Ray, okay? Let's say you have Rays, and they're getting a bunch of 16s. If they're getting 16s, that reads like SLKR for me, because we all know how SLKR works. You take them in with a full first team of first order, I don't even want to try and say that again. A full FO team, and his entire team dies. Ray either whirlwinds them, uses her ult, they all die, but he's usually chilling in his ult, not taking damage, and that's how you get that 16. So if you use a bunch of 16s down the board, that just means they're probably using SLKR. Another example for Ray would be is if they're getting like 20s or 19s on Ray, that means they're probably using a stronger counter. Maybe they're using JMK. Maybe they're using JML. But the thing is, it gives you guys an idea. Attacking the offense, you can guess what is in the next zone. You know, you don't have to play the speculation game a whole lot. If you can see consistent banners, that means you can kind of have an idea of what to expect. Another thing too, let's say you do have a Ray zone. Let's say Ray gets beaten with a 16, and then a Ray gets beaten by with 20. Okay, and what if it's the same person? If it's the same person, like the same name, that means they double called the zone, or someone's going rogue. Or they're just doing a free-for-all. So again, there's these little like subtle little hints of information that's within your defense that can really help apply to your offense knowledge. So when they're double calling a zone, that could be either good or bad. That can mean they just don't have enough counters for the one. Maybe they just don't have enough people, or like I said, people are just going rogue. But if you see the same name that are one shots, that typically means they're double calling it. If it's a cleanup, obviously cleanups are 15 or under. That's different, because that's when you can tell it's a cleanup, because it was already previously failed. They had to bring a completely different team in to clean it up. Another tip about your defense that can also kind of reveal what your opponent is doing, and you probably won't have to worry about this for majority of the game, but upwards towards the top end of TW, if you see if your opponent like isn't attacking your zone right away, that just means they're thinking. They're trying to figure out what's going on. You know, if the zone's been open for about 30, 45 minutes and no one's attacked yet, that means they're just thinking. And that could also reveal about what they have left on offense. Because like, let's just use Ray for example, because Ray's just an easy example. If you're hiding Ray, let's say in zone 3 up here, and they open it up and they're not attacking it yet, well, that could mean a couple things. That could mean they're trying to figure out how to beat your specific Ray comp, or that means they may not have the answer and they're trying to find a solution. Which means if they don't have the answer, like let's say JMK, JML, more than likely it's going to be on their defense. Going into that, if you see one team's been attacked, like let's say there's a Ray zone that's open right now, and they've attacked it once and they failed, then they attacked it twice and failed, and then 3 and 4 and 5, and all of a sudden that Ray team has like 5 or 6 attempts, that means they're testing. That means they're testing, because once a team has more than 2 holds, you can no longer lose banners on the victory. You're getting a flat 10 banners with 5 characters surviving. So they may be using that one Ray as a testing Ray, because, well, if they fail, they don't lose any more banners. They already lost their 10 banners in the fight. But again, you guys probably won't have to worry about that at, like, lower ends or even the mid game for TW. That's more of a high end tactic. Anyways, guys, that's gonna be it for today's video on defense. I'm probably gonna revisit defense again, because it is such a big topic that I don't want to just cover in just one video. So we'll probably revisit again and go a little bit deeper into we'll go over some defensive comps. Obviously nothing that's exclusive or anything, but just stuff that to give you guys kind of like a jump start, and like kind of how does maybe we'll even see like a mock defense one of these days, just to give you guys an idea on what you can do. As well as offense. The next video will definitely be diving into offense. And if you enjoyed today's video, guys, please be sure to like, subscribe if I've earned it. And if you have any questions about anything TW related or anything defense related in TW, please let me know down in the comment section below. I will get to you guys as soon as possible. And other than that, guys, take care and have a great day.